Dimakatso, good evening. So do we know for sure that this decision is expected this evening, and at what time?
Well, Yveka, we hope that that rain is a sound of good things to come from Moody's as well. We're actually not sure if we'll get a review this evening. We do know that for the past two reviews that were, they had said that they would issue, they skipped those two reviews to give South Africa time to get its house in order. And some analysts are saying that perhaps they may skip again because, if you recall, there's been a lot of information coming out in the last week or so. We heard Pravin Gordhan talking about Eskom and how they're going to deal with that, even though obviously there was a lack in terms of detail. We had the medium term now, we had the Treasury document in terms of economic reforms. So they're suggesting that perhaps Moody's could skip to just give South Africa enough time to see, if we are able to sort ourselves. But, a lot of economists, as you know, you can't find two economists agreeing on anything. Some are saying that definitely we'll have a review tonight. We don't know what time it will come out. It's usually between, after 8 to midnight, those 4 hours that we'll be waiting to hear from Moody's in terms of what they think of our fiscal stance.
So, Dimakatso, if they do downgrade us to junk status, if they don't skip this time, if they don't give us that reprieve and we end up at junk status, what does that mean for the country, and what does that mean for us as consumers and ordinary people?
I must just say that it is, according to a lot of economists, unlikely that we'll get a downgrade straight away because, as you know, at the moment we are on stable outlook, and the expectation, since Moody's has been so generous to South Africa, is that they'll perhaps change their outlook to negative, which will then give us about 18 months to 2 years before we go to a downgrade. Another scenario could be that we are immediately put on review for 3 months, meaning that we are definitely being downgraded if nothing changes. Because if we were put in review for 3 months, Yveka, you heard the Finance Minister saying that our fiscal position is unsustainable in terms of the debt, and there's no way that we're going to be able to sort that out in 3 months. So definitely we'll be downgraded. If we are downgraded tonight, it's going to be havoc for us, because what happens is that there are a lot of companies, investors who've put their money in South Africa, who've bought our bonds. They will have to sell those bonds because a lot of them are not allowed to invest in a junk status economy. Therefore, that will have implications directly for the rand. But most importantly, Yveka, is that if the rand tumbles, as we've seen in the past, the people who are likely to suffer are the poorest of the poor, because that will have implication for petrol prices, for the fuel price that we import, and that will obviously snowball in terms of bread prices, in terms of everything that we do, in terms of being able to access a loan. It will make credit expensive. The implications are huge if we do get a downgrade.
And what would happen, Dimakatso? What would be the factors that they might be considering as we are waiting for this decision? I mean, the midterm budget that we heard from Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, how big a part does that play in what Moody's has to decide? What are the other factors that they may consider considering our performance this entire year, the performance of our economy?
I think if you look at it, Yveka, that and the Eskom issue are the only play in town. We heard the Finance Minister saying that our debt to GDP is rising at an alarming rate. We are expecting debt to GDP to reach about over 70% in the next 3 years. That's unsustainable. And that talks to the fact that are we able to then service the debt? If you heard, recall in February, when the Minister delivered the budget earlier in the year, he said that we are borrowing 1.2 billion rand a day and we're paying back 1 billion a day. So if that has increased more than we had expected, if you recall, during Malusi Gigaba's term, we were told that we will reach about 60% of debt to GDP around 2020 to 2021. So it came earlier than we had expected. So the main factor that Moody's will look at is if South Africa Inc. is able to service its debt, and if they feel, given the fiscal stance, given the low economic growth, as you recall, that economic growth has been slashed by 1%, we're expecting the economy to now grow by 0.5%, and we have this huge burden, which is Eskom, right, on the fiscus and government having to take on Eskom's debt. As you know, Eskom has already been, in terms of its debt, it's in junk. So Eskom can't really go and borrow money because its debt has been downgraded to junk by Moody's. So that means that government has to take on a lot of that debt. So that and the fact that, we have this ballooning wage bill. So the minister had said that they're hoping to claw back some money. We'll hear what he says in February, based on the negotiations that will come. But we don't know if they'll be able to, because, as you know, Yveka, we've got unions who are not really compromising in a lot of these things. So they'll have to get a buy-in of the unions in order to contain the wage bill, the increases that will be coming for next year. If they're able to do that, they'll claw back some money, but that won't be enough in terms of dealing with Eskom and the huge burden that has put on the fiscus.
All right, well, let's cross our fingers and hope for the best, a reprieve at least. Thank you very much, Dimokata Tugwana. Just looking ahead there to that possible Moody's decision, and we're hoping that we're not headed for another downgrade. So let's pray for that.